you never had anything called, journalism. But suddenly today you go, there is not a college that does not offer journalism or communication, which is all encompassing. Even today, I go to the US every year and I visit a favorite university of mine, University of Central Oklahoma, and I give lectures there. I go as a visiting professor there. And it's not to the Department of Journalism or Visual, they call School of Communication. Everything is linked in one. And you walk through that building, it's a fascinating experience. But it all brings you back to that question I asked you first, and I'm still asking you, what is journalism? What is journalism, and why are we talking about reimagining narratives? How can you reimagine a narrative? Seriously, how can you reimagine a narrative? Because your job is to give a narrative. How can you, first of all, how can you imagine a narrative? And then secondly, how you can reimagine a narrative? The fascinating thing about journalism, my friends, is that journalism is nothing but storytelling. It's storytelling. That's all. If somebody asks you to define what journalism is, you tell them in one word or a hyphenated word: storytelling. That's it. Those days, when I joined the profession in the 80s, those days it was straight reporting, said here, today, that. That's what everybody will teach you in journalism. Straight reporting, said here, today, that. There is no adding, subtracting, no add masala to it. Straight, you give it. Those days also, the prerequisite of joining journalism was not a degree, a BA or MA in journalism, because they never had one. It's how well you can read or write that language. In my case, it was English. Whether you know how to type and whether you knew shorthand. Those were the essentials that went into your storytelling. But today, if you read, every newspaper, print newspaper, I don't care what language it is, every print newspaper is cutting down. It's cutting down because at one time when I joined, there was a reporter, a photographer, a transcriber, 3. Today, your cell phone does everything for you. Your cell phone does everything for you. It records, you can take a picture. The only thing is that you have to show up and ask some sensible questions. That's the only narrative that we are talking about. But still, today, your cell phone is doing wonders for you in terms of journalism or even Viscom. It is doing wonders for you. You can't live without that thing, cell phone. Right? Whether you brush your teeth in the morning or not, the first thing you look is WhatsApp. No, WhatsApp. Thinking that that's your whole life. Right? Correct. Am I right? Yeah. I do the same thing. Difference, I get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and look at WhatsApp. Somebody gets up at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever time you get up. But still, that is very, very critical for us. Because that's a different form of narrative we are getting, social media. Can we live without social media? Today, I don't think you can. I don't think you can. The other day, not why other day, yesterday, I went to change a watch battery, wristwatch. And the driver is telling me, so who the hell wears wristwatches these days? And I said, what do you mean? Time வேணா செல்போன்ல இருக்கு சார். I said, okay. But I have a watch, the battery is stopped, I want to change it. It's difficult to find a fellow to change your battery. Why? Wristwatches are going down in business. Seriously. How many of you run around with transistors in your hand these days? Nobody. See, that's what I'm saying. The narrative is changing, but the function is the same. The function is the same. You still need to put out credible stories. You still need to put out ethical stories. We look at all these mass movements. Look at all these mass movements going around all over the world. All over the world. The latest being Nepal. Nepal. The entire country went up in smoke. Why? Because some fellow in the government said, no, you can't use social media. No, you can't. So they put how shall I say, they put a blanket ban on social media. The country went up in smoke. They threw out the government. 50 fellows died. See what happens? The impact of social media. See, when you're talking about changing narratives or reimagining narratives, it all depends on the way, the mechanism in which you change reporting. When I started off my profession, it was very exciting because you had to do hundreds of hoops to get, to get an interview. You had to go and meet that person, take down meticulously, and then came the tape recorder, a big thing. And then we had to make sure that everything is in order. I've had many disappointments with the tape recorder because I didn't know how to operate one. So instead of pushing the record button, once I pushed the play button and I went home, I thought I had the whole thing interview taped. Nothing was there. Nothing was there. To my horror, I found out there was a blank tape. And then I figured out, oh my God, instead of pushing record, I pushed to play. So luckily, I had my notes with me. So I was able to reconstruct the narrative. But today, you cannot. If you cannot take notes, you're finished. Because in many times you go for an interview, the first precondition they'll tell you is leave your cell phone out with the receptionist. You can't take your cell phone inside. If you can't take it inside, you can't record. That's why even today when I teach my students at Sai University, I tell them, start writing. Start writing. Learn the habit of writing. Because today's your computer, your laptops, your desktops, they made a nuisance for your career. No, you can't even sign a check now. Because we are so used to the keyboard, we can't sign a simple check. And that runs into trouble in your profession. Well, whatever profession it is, whether it's journalism or as a Wiscom. Now, you may ask, how does a narrative change? Or does a narrative change? Suddenly, after many, many years, we have realized the importance of cultures. We have realized the importance of, see, I don't know how many of you were aware that when I used to be at SRM, in my BA and MA class, there was a compulsory subject that everybody had to learn. Understanding cultures. If you want to report on India, you cannot do a good job without knowing Indian culture or civilization. In fact, the heading of that course itself was Cultures and Civilizations. I did many tours of duty in my overseas tours of duty. I was in Southeast Asia, I was in Japan, I was in the US. And for my readers, because I work for a print outlet, for my readers, it was very essential for me to give them a background. Why things happen the way they do. That's very critical when you explain any, I don't care whether you are reimagining or imagining your narrative, unless you know your culture, any culture that you are in, there's no way that you're going to do justice to your report. Same thing, visual communication. You put out a picture. People should know the context of the picture. It's just not, some fellow clicks and goes. And newspapers will not print it. I'll give you a very small example. 9/11, you all have heard of 9/11. I was in New York that day, 9/11. I was there that day when Osama bin Laden unleashed terror in New York. And I don't know how many of you have seen this picture. In the World Trade Center, it's 120, 123 stories. There is a picture of a falling person. You have seen it, right? You know how disturbing it is, I was there, but I didn't see all those things. There's a picture of a falling man. 20 years later, they figured out it was a man. Because at that time, they only saw. Now, that Associated Press photographer who took the picture sent to all the papers. His agency sent it to all. Hundreds of them, of which only a handful of them printed that picture. Because even in 2001, people were worried about ethics. It's easy, wonderful picture. Wonderful picture. That's a picture of a lifetime. That's an award-winning picture. But still, newspapers won't touch it. Why? They put themselves in the family of that falling man. Suppose if it were your husband, or father, or brother, would you like to see? Or would you like to see what went through that man's mind when he took that leap out of the 73rd floor? See, these are the issues that you grapple with. And you don't need to know American culture to answer these questions. These questions are of common sense, which many of us are sorely in deficit these days. We're running a deficit. There's one deficit that we are not proud of, but we run a deficit in common sense. Because nobody, suppose if it were my brother, would I like to see that fellow jump out? Why did he take that leap? People are still asking that question. Why did he take that leap? Because he was in the 73rd floor, none of the elevators worked because all of them were shut down because two planes rammed that building. Two planes rammed that building. And it was very meticulously planned. I don't want to get into it, but I'll just give you a small example why the Twin Towers raced to the ground. Between these two planes, there were 175,000 gallons of aviation fuel. And do you know what 1 gallon of fuel can do? It completely incinerates the building. 3,000 people died, and another 15, 20 fellows leaped outside. And none of these fellows, when they were leaping out, imagine that they will survive. But still, the will to live, it's a common thing, we all like to live. That's the thing, apparently Maharaja Ranjit Singh at one time said, I don't know if it's true or not. Apparently at one time he said, when a man is drowning, he catches hold of himself at every straw that comes his way, thinking that the straw will save him or her. Now, this fellow who took that leap, he is not going to say, okay, he's passing the 50, okay, so far so good. He won't say that. But the ethics of not publishing outweighs every other consideration. Sometimes, modern journalism, we lack that. You remember this Air India crash that happened in Ahmedabad couple of months back? And one sole survivor. You stick a mic in his mouth and say, how do you feel? Oh man, I'm so sad I'm alive. Is he going to say that? Is he going to say that? Some of the most bizarre questions we ask, trying to, buttress your narrative. Terrorist attack, Mumbai, 2008. What does the media do? They go around a mourning family. How do you feel? What do you expect the family? Oh, I'm so happy that all these buggers are dead. Is he going to say that? Are they going to say that? No. But we are trying to buttress our narrative. Because print media is looking for circulation, and your electronic media is looking for rating. The more bizarre, the more atrocious, the higher the rating. No, but those days are slowly changing. You have to keep that in mind. Because people are becoming smarter. You look at any revolution that is taking place in the world. Who are the first reporters on the scene? They are not your regular reporters. They are tourists. I still remember the Arab Spring movement of 2011. It started in 2010, 2011. Some of the stories we got out of Egypt were all tourists who are putting those things out on Facebook at that time. Right? So the entire world depended on a narrative of a tourist. But how dependable is this tourist? That nobody knows. And nobody cared at that time because that was the only information coming out. So you have to be very careful of your narrative. As what these days we call those kinds of peoples very fashionably as citizen journalists. Citizen journalists, my God. Any fellow can write anything, we publish it. Citizen. And newspapers also unabashedly, they put, please send me your stories, whatever your videos or pictures, we'd like to hear from you. So this fellow goes around, he takes his picture, that street light is not working, this street light is. And once or twice they put all those things up. So what I'm trying to tell you is that you have to be very careful. Narratives don't change. narratives should not change because they're always governed by the principles of accuracy and ethics. See, that's what distinguishes a good newspaper from a bad, a credible television station from a not so credible station. That's what distinguishes them. So I think I will stop with that. And as usual, I love questions from all of you or any of you. Or if you want me to start asking you, I can also do that. I'll start with the faculty first. I'll start with the first row here, first to my left. Are you going to ask a question or shall I ask you? She should have been a journalist, anything is fine. Come on. Now I've got this open to people here also. Because basically the topic is so fascinating, I can stand here and talk all day with you and give you all kinds of examples, something that will blow your mind off sometimes. Huh? I was given 15 minutes. Yes, ma'am. Please sit down and ask your question.
So you talked about Nepal's journalism and
No, not Nepal's
Nepal's issue. And in India, the journalist informed people all over the world because it is a neighboring country. Many people informed that it was because of the ban of social media, but the reality was informed because of the social media only. The voices were against the nepotism and corruption, and the voice was silenced even before the protest. And the protest was already planned, which was on 18th, which was also published in social media using VPN because all the internet was banned in there. So by VPN usage and tourist journalism, which is citizen journalism, people came to know about Nepal's actual issue. Even after that, ethical journalists who have published that it was only because of the ban, which questions the narration of the journalism and ethics of journalism, because they are not reporting what is happening exactly on Nepal. Instead, they are portraying what the government wants to see all over the world. So, how do you respond to that?
Thank you, madam. It's a wonderful question. I would say the violence, the ban on social media was only a trigger. Already all ingredients for an upheaval were there. They needed some excuse, not excuse. Excuse is a very poor word. They needed some rationale. So these fellows said ban social media. That was enough. Because why? If you look at demographics of Nepal, there are a hell of a lot of youth there. Youth. And what are these youth? They are very upset. At what? They are upset at the social imbalance between the rich Nepali kids and the poor Nepali kids. The way they dress, the way they hang out, what kind of cell phones they use. All these things were building up. It was a building up momentum. And somebody set a match to it. Whichever idiot thought of, let's ban social media, because once you ban social media, then information we can control. See, that misfired. See, the thing is, Nepal has got lessons for the rest of the world, not because of social media, not because of banning social media. No, Nepal's lesson for the rest of the world, especially to South Asia, is listen. Keep your ear to the ground. Keep your ear to the ground. Meaning what? You better know what is happening in your society. It is a lesson to all policymakers. Lesson to all policymakers. If you want, if you want stability, you better pay attention to governance. That's what it is. It's a good question.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if this question is relevant or not, but I'm going to ask.
Anything is relevant in journalism.
Right. So, I'm actually from Hyderabad, Telangana. So, while coming, I thought I'll be bored in the train. I downloaded a movie called Rangam. It is predominantly about journalism and a journalist.
Uh-oh.
So, I don't know if you guys watched the movie, but the climax is the journalist lies to the whole nation because he firmly believes that lie is going to do good to the humanity. And the end quotation of the movie says, sometimes if a lie is doing good to the humanity, it is equivalent to the truth. So being a journalist and him lying, I think it goes against to the ethics. What is your take on it?
I'll tell you, man, as far as the journalism is concerned, I have not lied. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm not a saint. Okay. In my private life, I probably would have lied. But when it came to journalism, I never did because, number one, there was no opportunity for me to lie. Okay. What I mean, that's because I never reported within India. Okay. I reported only about what's happening, overseas. But I don't subscribe to the word, to that theme that if you're going to lie to save the country, then you lie. Here, that lie is also subjective, no? That one journalist thinks it's a lie. So he can talk about it, he can make it good. What if it doesn't hold with other people? No? So that many times lies turn into incitements. Lies turn into incitements. Like, for example, suppose somebody takes to the social media, WhatsApp, man, all kinds of rubbish you get every day. Rubbish. The government is going to confiscate your cell phone tomorrow. You think all of you will keep quiet? No. But you'll say, no, I didn't like people getting hooked onto cell phones. That's why I said that lie. No, that's stupid. Because you are having the potential of destabilizing a society. That's the reason why these days, even for regular telephone calls, I'm very reluctant to answer. Because I think it's a fake call. And once in a while I get this, Airtel says this is spam. Who the hell is Airtel to say that? Because it's my company, not my company, because I subscribe to Airtel. Airtel says it's spam. So I don't take the call. Then other fellows, suspected spam. Which are the calls I can take? One is a spam, the other is a suspected, spam. I still remember I was sitting at our auditorium in Katankulattur one day. This was when Mr. Abdul Kalam was the president, or he had just stepped down as president or something like that. No, little after that. After he became president, I get a cell phone message. Abdul Kalam is dead. He died in Salem. And he's being rushed from the Air Force Base in Salem. Then, I looked at the message. I thought to myself, this is fake. Now, how did I think it's fake? Only 2 days back, or only that day, he was somewhere in Assam giving a lecture to students. Right? Assam to Salem is not from T Nagar to Kodambakam. It's a hell of a long distance. Right? So I said, number one. Number two. Number three, there is no Air Force base in Salem. So the fellow who sent me that message, whoever, that the idiot who sent it was a big fool. Because the closest after Tambaram is only Sulur base in, Coimbatore. So luckily, of course, I'm not in the habit of, forwarding. So, and then I showed it to people, see what I got. And they were shocked. And I said, no, it's not true. So so whichever fellow sent it to you, that could be for a number of reasons. He may want to destabilize the country by trying to incite a communal riot or something like that. For us, one thing we Indians know, good or bad, start a riot. Whether you're celebrating or you're condemning, we don't care. Throw stones. Okay. And then we figure out, what the hell are we throwing stones for? We condemn that fellow or we are praising that fellow. So, that's a kind of, I'll be very careful in subscribing to that kind of views. I'll be very careful. But I understand that whoever that journalist in that movie was, I can understand he thinks he's trying to do good. But I would find other ways of doing good. He's okay. I am done, madam. Thank you all for listening. And no, I don't want to. No, madam, I'm fine. Don't let the guests wait. Okay, I'm going to sit down here, so I want to watch him there. Okay? Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your stories and insights with us. I now call upon Mr. Ebenezer A., Director, Center of Excellence, Media, Entertainment and Communication, Assistant Professor, Department of Visual Communication, to introduce the guest of honor for today.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome you all for the second international conference. I'm here to welcome Mr. Hood Ibrahim from Maldives Center for Policy Research. Mr. Mohammad Hood Ibrahim is a political scientist, lecturer, board director, and management consultant with more than a decade of experience in high-level government, corporate management, and NGO charitable services. Hood has published research for UNESCO, UNDP, and ADB. Mr. Hood serves as the UNESCO IYF Regional Facilitator for Asia Pacific, the Director of Global Strategic Institute for Sustainable Development, the Vice President of the Maldivian Red Crescent, the Director of Belt and Road Initiative for Sustainable Development, and as the lead editor for the Journal of Youth, Peace and Security. Mr. Hood champions values of public diplomacy, international relations, global partnerships, sustainable development, youth participation, and ownership in knowledge production processes. I welcome Mr. Hood, and I would like to invite him online. He's already online just spotlight him, sir. So let us hear from Mr. Hood. Thank you so much.
Hello, good morning. I hope you can hear me. So I was hoping to share a presentation. I'm not sure if the host is enabled this or not. It would be great. While that's happening, hello everyone in this wonderful conference, the second international conference on storytelling, organized by the Shasun Giant College and the Malaysian Youth Council. While we're waiting for the presenter privileges, I'm speaking here from the Maldives, and it's wonderful to join all of you. And this is a very important topic. This topic about storytelling and the role of media in the world, as highlighted by this previous speaker, and the wonderful anecdotes and the rich experience will guide all of us. I'm sure I was very much happy to hear all this information. Today I'll speak about the background and the experience of the small island state that is the Maldives, and how with our unique I hope you can see now. So I'll highlight the role of storytelling, and particularly in the area of cultural heritage safeguarding and reimagining heritage and resilience in the face of challenges like climate change. So one particular program that I will highlight is the Youth Side program, which is a national level program, and I'll share more about this. So as I said before, first of all, hello from the sunny side of life, which is the Maldives. This is what we call, it's our slogan. I'll go to a brief introduction of the country and geopolitics, our tourism-based economy, which is one of the richest in terms of per capita GDP in South Asia, and look at the challenges and the solutions that youth are creating through storytelling, the wonderful ideas. So one of the organizations that I represent is the Journal of Youth, Peace and Security, and with a wonderful introduction by Sir there, we highlight a lot on youth storytelling, youth academic research and knowledge generation. So I wear a lot of hats. These are some of the roles, former and current, some of the research papers that I've published. But getting to the meat of today's presentation, I wanted to talk about our country. Here we have two images of Maldives. One may be very familiar to you, the image of, turquoise crystalline waters. On the left-hand side, you see the capital, the two lived realities, the two stories of our country. The story that we show the international world and that powers our economy, building our GDP, and also the real lived experience of Maldivians, the story of Maldivian citizens and where they live. So there are differences. It's the same country, but there are differences. I'm sure there are dichotomies like this that you have also experienced in your own countries. Young people in Malaysia, young people in India. So the Maldives is a small island developing state, as I mentioned earlier. We call ourselves, and we've been described by explorers since ancient times, as the pearl necklace of the Indian Ocean, with almost 1,200 islands. We benefit through our geographical position in the Indian Ocean with trade and travel. And we are also positioned like a toll gate, like a necklace when you take a necklace up, between the strategic choke points of the Gulf of Aden, the Strait of Hormuz on one hand, and the Eastern Indian Ocean choke point of the Strait of Malacca. So this means that a lot of international shipping, or majority of international shipping, passes in the vicinity of the Maldivian territorial waters, which have a broad, significant importance for the global maritime trade, and particularly for our friends. About 50% of India's external trade and 80% of energy imports transit through these international shipping lanes. So you'll see why this is important in a little bit. Here is a heat map from the marine traffic of shipping, global shipping. You see here in the south, here in the north, just the south of India here. The Maldives is somewhere down here, right in the middle here, if you can see it. We are a very small island state. 99% of our nation is ocean, right? So sometimes on maps, you have to zoom in a little bit. So the challenges that we are facing are climate change. Maldives builds this challenge as an existential threat. And we have been a prominent voice telling our stories in diplomatic circles, in the diplomatic community. And we were the first nation speaking about sea level rise and climate change together in the United Nations General Assembly in 1980s. So we have taken that leadership role facing the threat of climate change. We acknowledge that maybe in 100 years, Maldives will not exist the way it exists now. But we are not going to go quietly. We're going to tell our stories. We're going to show the world an example of possibly adaptation to the climate crisis and what we can reimagine the future to be. Some of the solutions that we have are quite costly, like submerged tubes, beach replacement, raised artificial ridges, artificial reef, coastal vegetation. These things we can see here by linear meter. There's like a million, by millions we are showing these costs. So with these 70,000 cargo ships that cross the Indian Ocean, the value of goods is 18 trillion annually. So this is just the north of the Maldives, the transport. And why this is important to us is we are placing ourselves in the conversation of the global consciousness in the global community, in the international community, as a stakeholder in maritime trade. And as I mentioned before, and as you probably know, we are a tourism-based economy, which is internationally recognized. And we have demonstrated the highest standards of hospitality across the world. So much so that other countries seek to learn from us. And we are very happy to see countries like Saudi Arabia, India, learning from our hospitality and tourism industry and expanding their economies and diversifying their economies. We hope to do the same in other sectors. We are a Muslim country, but we are aligning to modern and progressive ideologies and practices with rapid urbanization since the 70s. Evident in the language I'm speaking to you today. We also believe strongly in free market economy, aligning with capitalism and rules-based global order. We engage very heavily in small state politics and diplomacy, especially through our role as the IOCS member and former chair. So as we have been discussing, we have several environmental, geopolitical, and public health challenges. And during COVID-19, we saw our food systems disrupted due to the lockdown and shutdown of global economy. Every one of you and even us were locked inside our homes, quarantining, trying to be safe from the disease. We also saw with the different conflicts around the world, like the Russia-Ukraine war and the Israel-Palestine war, we are seeing that there is significant impact on global trade. And Maldives, as a country that is 100% reliant on imported goods with very little production, we are very susceptible to shocks. This image here shows you the concept of the Maldives floating city. These are scalable modular units that rise with the ocean using Dutch technology. This is a concept we hope to build, proposed by the last administration. And maybe we will see this in the future where we have floating countries. So we have a large youth population. 40% of our population is youth. And our population is comparable to countries like Malta and Iceland, 500,000, 557,000. We have 6 regional hospitals, 16 airports, and increasing 4 international airports, and 192 inhabited islands out of the 1,200 islands, 172 operational resorts. So what are we doing? What are the youth of Maldives doing? How are we telling our stories and reimagining narratives? Let's take a look. So our international team of advisors guides our work at the Center of Research. This is my executive team. Our youth side program works together in sustainable development in tourism, heritage, and environment conservation, bringing international best practices and experts for national development, which is an area that is lacking. We don't have the international best practice experts in our country, but we do have a vibrant academic and educated young people. Banking on that, we work with different organizations, bringing together national actors and CSOs and different authorities. So some of the projects that we've done is Atoll EcoNut Advocacy Training Program, community skate park program worth 30,000 with various donors supporting our work, and the tourism vessel mooring project to protect the environment worth USD 15,000, and developing a tour guide training syllabus for developing young people as tour guides, and using new technologies to protect and preserve and innovate traditional culture. So we use new platforms like social audio. Everyone was using Clubhouse and everyone is using the X platforms, discussion forums. We use these to as well and try to educate the public on global action, youth development. So these are some of the examples, some of the highlights I'd like to share with you. This is one of the very remarkable young entrepreneurs who are developing jewelry using Maldivian environment and inspired through our culture. We also have, LiDAR models of traditional sites like mosques and different stupas in development at the moment, showing our history and our rich culture. We also have carvings through stone masonry work, which is not well documented, but slowly it's a popularized activity, and it's on social media and it's on different competitions now. Slowly, young people are using these platforms to make themselves heard, to make themselves be seen. So this is one of our programs where we value the living heritage, the living treasures in our community. So this is Titudatta. She's from the south of the Maldives. She's wearing our traditional dress, the Divehi Libas. You can see here very rich colors, red and gold. The gold is traditionally actual gold, and yeah, the gold is traditionally weaved together with silk and gold thread. So it's a uniquely Maldivian skill. And you can see the beautiful embroidery techniques. We document their stories, their elderly, rich experience. We create songs, collect their traditional songs, how do you say, the oral histories that they have collected over their lifetime. And we build digital libraries. This is an ongoing project on the ancient silk weaving and traditional life. And we popularize intangible cultural stories through new media. So platforms like Instagram, X, and others, that we center their life and their stories, as well as our history, which is not very well documented. So we call this protecting living treasures. This is something you could also do in your communities. We also safeguard ancient customs and practices by bringing back the traditional fashion. You can see here some of the young people reimagining what it might be to wear traditional Maldivian dress. This is not something common anymore. We are very westernized. And if you visited, you might be thinking, is this, a European country or is this an Asian country? So we celebrate our national days, our independence days through traditional wear practices and culture. We also have intangible heritage through women's health lens. So this is interesting, the ancient ritual, prehistoric ritual, where we give guided tours of ancient matriarchal practices. The Maldives used to be a matriarchal society with the women in charge of organizing society. We're also reviving interest in traditions of fertility through tourism, local guest house tourism, local tourism, and homestay tourism, different models we have. This is one of the ancient rocks that women are supposed to go visit and do this spot. And if they are hoping to build a family, they will be blessed. So I tried this, didn't work for me, but maybe when you visit, you can try as well, right? So we also have very unique organizations that are expanding the scope of solutions and telling stories in a different way, such as the Maldivian Space Research Organization, engaging in the form of engaging with our community of captains and navigators. Maldivians have always been adventurers and navigators, one of the highest in demand for global sea voyages. This coupled with new technologies for us, definitely, Earth observation and hyperspectral and synthetic aperture radars we can identify. Here you can see in the top image, the coastline, traditional conventional satellite imagery. And here you see hyperspectral imagery where you can see the movement of seagrass population changes, coastal erosion and subsidence, movement of the land up and down, coral bleaching and declining mangrove health and soil composition. So such as land scarce nation or big ocean nation, we have this ability to plan governance and build our local policies to reflect the vulnerability and also moving beyond that vulnerability into resilience. We also have the MSRO, the Maldivian Space Research Agency organization, developing platforms like the Maldives Tides.me, which is part of the Digital Earth Maldives initiative, looking at developing accurate tide models and access to tide data at the local scale for governance needs, which complement long-term sea voyage. So looking at the Maldives Tides
sorry
platform.
for the interruption. Because we are running short of time.
Sure.
Can
Let
we
me wrap
please
up very
conclude?
quickly.
And can you please integrate your presentation with the storytelling narratives, and we shall conclude in a minute, sir.
Sure.
Because we need we need to release the proceedings, and all the participants are waiting.
Okay, thank you.
So thank you.
For the Maldives Tides platform, these are storytelling narratives you've seen on different platforms. And this specific tool is part of the storytelling of our history of navigation, our history of exploration. And this blends the storytelling, media and storytelling, as well as good governance, publicly available tools. We've been able to successfully forecast disasters and try to increase coordination mechanisms through our ability to educate the public on our vulnerability and our ability to forecast future disasters or early warning systems. So this is one of the platforms that are under development, like the surge, swell, and early warning systems, where islands are identified. You can see in red the different red, orange, and green, the different ocean levels. You have Maldives Island Conservation Project organization working here. They're preserving the natural environment and also showing the natural environment online and telling the story of our conservation of our rich mangrove history and why it's important, why we should conserve the environment and not move to an urban concrete development model. We also have the storytelling of the culture of surfing and skating in the Maldives. So these are young people who are doing this and using photo stories and using video stories and different platforms for popularizing this. Young people are using new media to bring back traditional farming techniques and giving information to other young people on what organic farming can be instead of chemical farming that is now all over the world. So this is the power of storytelling, and this is used to promote SDGs under the Maldives Youthside Project. Through platforms like X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, WhatsApp, Telegram, and Viber. So I think I will wrap up here. These are some of the different storytelling platforms that we have developed, the different websites and business and social partnerships. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, I'll take them now.
Thank you, sir, for your meaningful insights and support. I now request the chief guest to release the conference proceedings. Okay, post the conference proceeding, we'll be having a quick photo session. And after that, we'll be breaking for 15 minutes. This is for the offline participants. The online participants, please be ready. We will start the session right after the photo session. Sir, we now request you to release the hard copy as well. Thank you, sir. Let us quickly assemble for the photo session. Post the photo session, there'll be a 15-minute break for the offline participants. The online participants may join the link that's been sent to their respective WhatsApp groups.
Record